of course, we had you on before the Michigan game, and you know that you took some flack from some people, of course, Michigan fans in particular, about your confidence level and how you separated the two teams. Well, I think we pretty much saw it play out, pretty much exact in regards to the talent gap there. You know, there were things that could have been done by Michigan, and we can go into development of players, and we can go into strategy. And I rewatched the first half because I wanted to get a clear indication of, okay, I'm watching the first half over because that is what really mattered, because it was over after that. And I was also going on a Michigan podcast. So I wanted to be knowledgeable of just not remembering the first watch. So I watched the first half again, and I wanted to kind of take account every play. Am I evaluating this play as Georgia won this play because of talent? They were too fast, too strong, too whatever, or somebody missed a throw, or it was a dumb coaching decision, or I don't agree with that play call kind of thing. And by and large, certainly there were some things that Michigan did that I didn't agree with, but by and large, it was just, there's a difference in having 19 5-stars and having 3 5-stars.
I would completely agree. I really caught a lot of heat from Michigan fans, and I mean a lot of heat. I think it was their first time having an exchange with an SEC fan that was not a what's the word I'm looking for here, was not catering to the Michigan fan base. I just I called it the way that I saw it, and I thought talent was going to be a problem, even though they do have a lot of talented players. I just think that when we saw the size and speed difference against Georgia, it was pretty easy to see that. I mean, when you've got wide receivers like George Pickens who can basically ragdoll toss one of their defensive backs like he did, that should have been an indication of the real differences, because wide receivers are not known for being physical powerhouses. They're just not. And that Michigan player, he got tossed. And being a sports fan and being a college football fan, there is a bit of homerism that goes along with rooting for your team, but at some point you have to at least be somewhat objective. Otherwise, nobody's going to listen to you other than Georgia fans or whatever your team is. Watching the way the Michigan fan base completely disappeared. I think there was 3 people that came back and said, good game. Kind of made me smile a little bit. I was kind of surprised about it. Alabama fans, even if they beat you, some of them are trash talking. That's fine. And some will say, you know what, you guys played a good game, or whenever we played against so-and-so, that wasn't your best game. You guys did a great job against Michigan. You get a full gambit from them. But that was my first interaction with Michigan fans, and they kind of disappeared after the game was over. So I wish they'd come back around and just kind of have an analytical breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had our Michigan guy, Justin Rowe, on yesterday, and we've yet to release that. And he wasn't and did not make any excuses. He saw the obvious gap between the two teams. And he actually, even before the game, he thought that Michigan had a chance. He thought that Georgia was better. He thought Michigan would have to play close to a perfect game. I still come away with that, having watched what I watched, but also knowing other results from the two teams and knowing how good the teams are that they played. We saw the Big Ten and the SEC matchup in 3 other games, so you can draw other conclusions. And then also knowing the gap in talent, where Michigan pretty much has as many 4-stars as Georgia. We would have to comb through. There's quite a sizable, lengthy list of 4-stars. You can be a top 50 player as a 4-star. You can be a top 450 players of 4-stars. So we'd have to weed through that. And I would guess that Georgia's quality of 4-stars would be higher than Michigan's, but still a lot of 4-stars on the field on both teams, and a lot of NFL players on the Michigan side. Now, again, the quality of NFL player, there's a difference there, probably. It's like 2 years ago, roughly. I remember having an exchange with some Michigan folks because Michigan had 10 NFL players drafted and Ohio State had 10 NFL players drafted. Well, all of Michigan's players were drafted in the 5th and 6th rounds. And Ohio State had 2 of the top 3 players in the draft and 4 players in the top 20. And so all their players were drafted near the top of the board and Michigan's were. So yeah, it was 10 and 10, but there was a difference there. And so, yeah, there are quality players on Michigan's. They'll earn a lot of money in the NFL. Daxton Hill just declared for the NFL draft, and he's like the number 2 safety in the country. But when you look at waves and waves of players, obviously we saw the difference. So the last point I'll make, because we want to focus, of course, on Alabama, is that that game didn't surprise me. I didn't expect it, but it didn't surprise me. I may have made the comment to you because I made it several times. I said, if this game's 45-14, it's not going to surprise me. Georgia won 45-14, and it played out like it did. But I do think that if the teams played multiple times, we would see different games and closer games. Not necessarily close games, but closer games. So that's all I'll say about that.
I think that I think what we saw out of Michigan, we had some. They do have quality players. I'm not saying they're Vanderbilt. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they've got some quality players. I think that their game plan was a bit of a mistake. I can understand and respect the fact that they wanted to stick to what they knew they had been successful with, which was trying to run the ball. However, when you have something that's a strength versus strength, and no one has shown any, superhuman ability to just run the ball all over Georgia in the past 3 years under the same coach, I would say that's probably a game plan that needs to be tweaked a little bit. I understand they might not have had the greatest confidence in their quarterback for having him throw the ball 20 or 30 or 40 times. But I think after the first quarter or even the first half, seeing how well Georgia had efficiently stopped the run, it was probably a time to try to make a different game plan. And they never could catch up. Georgia's defense was flying all over the field. Nakobe Dean looked like a lightning bolt. There was one play in particular where he started all the way, and I'll say at the bottom of the screen to make it easy for some people. He started at the bottom of the screen and ended at the top of the screen, and the running back who got the ball never gained a yard. Matter of fact, I think he lost a half a yard. And Nakobe Dean, to cover that much ground that quickly, read the play, knew the play. I didn't see any defensive plays like that from Michigan all night. And so it was interesting.
I remember the play you're talking about. It was Blake Corum. And I even thought, it went through my mind at the time, that sometimes you'll see quarterbacks on some of these dump offs just kind of lay it out there, which gives the defense a split more second of time to get over there. But I think Cade McNamara, knowing how fast this defense was, actually he threw he got the ball out of his hand quick and threw a bullet to him to try to get the ball out there to him as fast as possible. And Nakobe Dean still just did a beeline and just dropped him.
That, to me, that's one of the things. I'll go back to the coaching aspect of it. This was a play that Nakobe Dean had clearly watched on film. He knew what this play was going to be from before the time the ball was snapped. He was already full speed, had abandoned his coverage protection that he was supposed to do, knew the ball was going to this guy. And as they say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. This is where I'm going. And by the time the ball was snapped, Nakobe Dean was already at full speed. The ball came out quick, and he never had a chance to make the corner. Nakobe Dean in open field tackled him perfectly. And that should have been a play that, even though Jim Harbaugh had practiced a million times, they should have found a way to tweak that, give us a different look of that same play, but not do that. And then the next second or third time, do that. Then you have Nakobe Dean completely out of place and exposed. Then you can make a big play on that in 2 or 3 possessions later.
Is there anything that happened on the New Year's Eve that made you feel or think any differently about Georgia?
Me? Yes.
Yeah.
Specifically Stetson Bennett's quarterback play. This was the best game that he has played all year. There was times whenever he knew that if he stood in the pocket and threw the ball, he was going to take a lick. He knew it, and he did it anyway and made a great pass. He knew he was going to get popped, and he said, fine, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to make this pass. And there were several good passes that he made where whenever the camera scanned back to Stetson Bennett, you saw him getting up off the ground. Now, typically when a quarterback, the first couple of those, he'll start to get a little squirrely on the back end after he's been popped 3 or 4 times. That didn't happen. He stood in the pocket, he made the pass, took the lick, and was completely okay with it. And the passes that he was throwing, with the exception of maybe I think 1 or 2, they weren't behind the receiver. James Cook didn't have to slow down to catch a ball. He was hitting guys in stride. He really hasn't done that all year, which has led to the idea that he has a noodle arm. This particular game, these were great passes. They were where they needed to be. There were times whenever he knew he was going to get blitzed that he could have tried to scramble and just chose to actually throw the ball instead. So I think this showed a much more mature Stetson Bennett than what we had seen. And if we can see that kind of maturity in him in the Alabama game, that'll be much more of a contest than what we saw before.